Hello, everyone. Gia here with the Uptown Standard crew. Today, I am sitting down with Mr. Connor Lamb, Pennsylvania Congressman representing PA's 17th Legislative District. Connor, thank you so much for sitting down with us today. Really appreciate it.
Great to be with you. Although I'm standing up, I hope that's okay.
It is. Perfect. Well, hey, let's get right into it because I know we got a few questions for you today. So starting right off, Connor, it's been stated that as you run for Senate, for US Senate, you're aiming to gain the same voters that elected Joe Biden. However, as we've seen Biden's favorability drop amongst his own voters, why would the same people who have felt let down by President Biden now be persuaded to vote for someone running on a similar platform? How do you plan to gain their trust and quote unquote rebuild that coalition of voters?
Well, I think most people are voting based more on the issues and sort of a record of accomplishment and the likelihood that we can bring back results and do the things that we say. And so President Biden has a record like that. It's why so many people chose him in 2020. And I think a lot of the frustration that, at least that I run into kind of day to day talking to people, is about us not finishing everything that we started and really getting every bill and every law passed that we said we would. Now, the truth is that he's gotten the most done that he can with the numbers that he has. So a lot of the support that I've gotten from folks are people who look at the actual reality of it, not just the rhetoric and the emotion of saying, oh, we need more, more, more. But the fact is politics is a numbers game, and we have had the numbers in the House. We're about 2 votes short in the United States Senate. And so if people support me, well, for the nomination, I've proven I can beat Republicans 3 times. I've beaten them in districts that are tougher than the state as a whole. I think I'm the one that can actually get there and try to solve this problem for us by providing one of those missing votes in the Senate.
Right. And I mean, on that note, the Pennsylvania Senate race, it's a huge race as Democrats are battling to maintain control of the Senate, and picking up the PA Senate seat. It's a key factor in that. So why do you feel that you're the best candidate to win against the Republican nominee? And what issues are you passionate about that you feel are on the line should Democrats lose control of the Senate?
Definitely. I'll take that second part first, if that's all right, because it really is the overarching question.
Mhm.
If we don't win this Senate seat, it probably is impossible for the Democrats to hold a majority in the Senate any longer. Just if you look at what the states are and the seats being where they are, the Senate is just tough. And so if we don't do that, there probably won't be a Voting Rights Act of any strength. The filibuster will not be repealed. So we also won't put Roe v. Wade into law as we should and protect women and their right to choose. There probably won't be a minimum wage bill of at least $15 an hour. There probably will not be a George Floyd Justice and Policing Act, measures to do with public housing, all of the problems really that affect large cities. The Republicans pretty much oppose federal action on. So a lot of things hang in the balance here, much more than the normal, because again, we're at this 50-50 point. And unless we get that one extra vote to put us in the majority, it's just become so partisan in a lot of these issues, we can't do it. Now, as far as why people should give me some serious thought for the nomination, what our nominee has to do the day after the primary in this race is step out into a larger world in Pennsylvania, where you're appealing not only to partisan Democrats, but also to independents and even some moderate Republicans. And that's not like something you just would like to do. That's something you have to do to win in this state. Joe Biden had to do it to become the president in 2020. And you can look at the election results and see he won statewide, and then 2 Republicans won right alongside him for other statewide offices, meaning that there were people switching between Democrats and Republicans on their own ballot. So those are the kinds of people that I've always been able to appeal to. I've been able to put that big team together of Democrats plus independents, and even some of these moderate Republicans. In my first district, Trump won by 19 percentage points the year before I ran and won that district. And it was because I got this big group to vote for me. That wasn't by compromising on our values. It was because a lot of people who are these sort of swing voters, they may not be so focused on one issue, but they like it if you serve the country in uniform like I did, or come from law enforcement like I did. They tend to like younger candidates because they want to see change in Washington. So those are some of the things I can offer that the other 2 in this race cannot.
Awesome. And I mean, that kind of answered my next question there, which is, what are some key differences between your platform and Fetterman's platform that do make you the better candidate to appeal to a wider mass that's going to make you more likely to win that Senate seat?
I think there's one really important policy difference that hasn't gotten enough attention in this race, and that is with respect to healthcare. John favors a policy called Medicare for All, which sounds really nice because Medicare is popular and you'd love everybody to have something like it. It costs probably at least $30 trillion with a T over the next 10 years, which is actually the whole size of our national debt right now. So he's basically calling for the national debt to be doubled in the name of healthcare. A lot of people don't actually like that when they learn how it would play out, because there's questions about whether hospitals would go bankrupt because Medicare doesn't pay as much as private insurance, whether you get to make all of your own choices about all your own doctors and where you get to go. And most importantly, none of the advocates of that policy have ever explained how they would pay for it, which taxes they would raise on who and when to generate all of that money. So it's something that, with all the chaos going on with rising prices at the grocery store, at the gas pump, it's a policy that I don't think is going to be very popular with people, especially this year. They're looking more for stability and control over the costs in their lives. And so I'm someone who already has voted multiple times to strengthen the Affordable Care Act and bring costs down for people with their private insurance. And I think that's what they're looking for.
And I think that's a great lead in, again, into the next question. So in a recent debate with Lieutenant Government Fetterman and State Rep Kenyatta, you did express that you felt President Biden could have done a better job of addressing that stress and the pain of inflation and COVID-19. So can you expand a little bit on what you do feel President Biden could have done better, and what steps specifically you do aim to take to address that inflation and the overall impact of COVID?
Sure. I think the point I was trying to make in that debate is that any of us, from President Biden down through every member of Congress like myself, anyone who holds public office, and I would include the lieutenant governor in this as well. Sometimes people forget that he has a job now because he doesn't really talk about what he does with it, but he has one. I would say all of us are responsible for trying to address people's pain and frustration about inflation. I know President Biden is trying. I know he's pushed forward a bunch of different policy ideas. And recently he's been talking a lot about the way he actually has shrunk the federal deficit since he's been in office. That it grew under Trump. The deficit got bigger. You know, the Republicans always say they're these tax cutters and deficit hawks. The deficit got bigger under Trump. It has gotten smaller under Biden, and that helps with inflation. So I think the other things that we are for are very concrete and easy to understand. We may not be able to control the price of gas or the price of groceries in the next 6 months, but tomorrow we can control the price of drugs, healthcare premiums, out-of-pocket healthcare costs, student loans, childcare. We believe should be capped at 7% of what you earn. I would put that same number, by the way, 7% on what you pay in student loans every month. And I also am part of a group that has a specific bill to make Social Security checks larger. And of course, if we raise the minimum wage as well, then you're doing a number of things to raise people's pay and lower their costs. And Biden has proposed and fought for all those things. But again, it just comes back to, we're a couple votes short in the Senate. And so I think that's what the campaign's about. Rather than making it about blame for what didn't happen yet because we don't have the numbers, we're making about the opportunity for voters to take control of this and get the benefit of all these cost-cutting measures by choosing a Democrat as their next senator.
Okay. All right. And let's switch gears a little bit. All right. I want to focus a bit more on abortion rights, because as you know, that's one of the biggest issues that's come to the forefront right now. And a big reason for that is because of that Supreme Court draft opinion that was leaked. And as I've read, and as you stated a bit previously here, is that while you're not personally for abortion, you do believe in protecting a woman's right to choose. So if you're elected to the Senate, what stance would you take on abortion rights, and what actions would you then take to support that stance?
Sure. And what's good for you to know about me is I've already taken these exact votes and exact stances in the House, and I'm really just looking to take the same thing over to the Senate to give us enough votes. And so, yes, I do think that abortion is a matter of an individual's person's private conscience. And so I allow for the fact that, given that we all come from different religious and moral backgrounds, we may view that issue differently. Now, reporters are always asking me what I personally think about abortion, and I would like to say to them, I don't know why anyone cares what I personally think about abortion, since I'm never going to have one. I'm not one of the people that is impacted in that way. And so when you swear an oath to the Constitution to be a member of Congress, you have to think about the good of the community as a whole. And it is clear to me, having met many women who've gone through this decision for themselves with their doctors, that it is very, very important it be left up to an individual and their conscience and not the government. So we actually have a bill that has passed the House already that would have taken Roe v. Wade and put it into law. So before the Supreme Court draft even leaked, we did this a couple months ago because I think it should be out of the court's hands at this point. This is a very popular position, upholding Roe v. Wade, and the people's popular elected representatives should step up and make this the law. So we did that in the House. It is missing 1 or 2 Democratic votes in the Senate, depending on how you count them. They haven't voted on it yet, but I could be that missing vote if I get over there. So, and then there's a second part of it that has to do with letting Medicaid cover abortion services for poor women, which I also support.
Awesome. Okay. And now let's say in the event the Supreme Court doesn't back to overturn Roe v. Wade, if elected to the Senate, what are the next steps for you to protect and support the women of Pennsylvania in that regard? Is it to focus on still passing this legislation? Are there other avenues? What would be your next steps?
That's really the main thing. So the first thing we would have to do is get rid of the filibuster. The filibuster on legislation has required 60 votes for anything to pass, which we're not going to get on this issue, just like voting rights, and a couple other things. So we should get rid of the filibuster, and then we would put the Women's Health Protection Act on the floor. And if we passed that with 50 votes and Vice President Harris was the tie-breaking 51st, it would become the law, and the right to Roe v. Wade would be restored in every inch of this country. Likewise, we need to, again, make sure that Medicaid is able to provide abortion services because these restrictions fall hardest on the poorest women. And so you can picture a single mom who makes, $15 an hour. She can't afford her own insurance. She may live in a state like Texas, which has now outlawed this procedure. She can't afford to travel somewhere else. So it's really important that if she's on Medicaid health insurance, that be available to her where she lives.
All right. All right. So last question for you here. Okay. So we're 2 weeks out from the primaries. Except for our poll, you're behind in the polls, behind in funding, and running out of time. So if there's one message that you really want to get across to voters, a Hail Mary, if you will, what would that message be?
First of all, a Hail Mary is not required. It's not like a sports game where, we're down on the scoreboard and the clock is ticking. And that's because few, if any, votes have been cast. It's really like the very beginning of the first quarter of a sports game because most people haven't cast their vote yet. So one of the things that happens in these campaigns is the media so overemphasizes polls that are of very, very poor quality. I mean, your poll for a specific area is as large or larger than some of the polls that they've put out there for the entire state, which is just ridiculous. And so in a way that starts to kind of take away the decision from the people themselves, I think, and all the reporting on money does that too. People are free to vote for who they want to vote for, and whoever they think is the strongest candidate to go up against the Republicans in November, you should vote for. I've told you why I think that's me, because I've actually experienced this and I've been in these campaigns against Republicans and I beat them 3 times. They've spent a lot of money against me before. And that's the other thing I would say is the first time I ran, in a district that Trump won by so much, they outspent me probably 10-1. So what Fetterman's doing now, 2-1, 3-1 maybe, is nothing compared to what I went through the first time. So I've been on both sides of this, and all I can really do is ask the voters to just look at who we are and what we're for, and most importantly, what our results actually are. Anyone can go around the state promising you stuff. What I've done is taken votes, passed bills under both presidents of both parties, brought hundreds of millions of dollars back to my district. And we've done things like the American Rescue Plan that actually really helped residents of large cities like Philadelphia. It helped children who were living through child poverty. It helped working people who couldn't afford their health insurance before. It really, it helped the school district that I know needs a lot more help. And then we didn't address the issue of gun violence, but it is something I'm very passionate about from my time as a prosecutor. And I really want to be someone that can especially help bring money back to these community nonprofits that we have. At MLK High School last weekend, I met this guy, Nazir, who spends all his time trying to interrupt the fights between young people that end up leading to gun violence. He's been there himself. He knows them, and he does it all on his own time, completely or for free. And those are the types of people that they should be working for the public and getting paid for what they do, because we have to find a way to reduce gun violence. So I'm a person who's about results, and I won't consider the job done until we actually reduce gun violence and make people better off.
Okay. And Congressman, any last minute remarks that you'd like to add today at all?
I think the last thing I want to say is just that since this campaign began for me in August, I have spent a lot of time in Philadelphia, and I'm very thankful for that time because a lot of community leaders, especially in the Northwest and northern parts of the city, but really all over, have taken me in, have walked me through their neighborhoods, have had me in their churches, have sat down and talked to me about the issues from the local perspective, knowing that I'm a white person from the other side of the state who has mostly represented other white people and their issues. People threw open the door to me, and they've helped educate me on how to be a good advocate for the city. I went to school in Philadelphia for 7 years at Penn, lived there. I love the city. And so if I get a chance to be your next senator, I'm going to deliver for Philadelphia. I'm going to take that responsibility very seriously because you all have invested in me, and I will never forget that. So I'm just very grateful for that.
Well, Congressman, I really, really appreciate your time today. Thank you for sitting down with us. Again, my name's Gia. I'm your host with the Uptown Standard podcast crew, and you all have a great rest of your day.